Today we talk about dummies, a very hot topic for any mom. I love a dummy because it helps my baby relax and sleep. But surely there is some disadvantages. So today with us is Mrs. Joan Orr, answering all our dummy related questions. Is there any disadvantages with regards to the use of a dummy?
There can be if one uses a dummy for too long. But it has a wonderful place in the first year and a half of a child's life. So I think that what one needs to think about is what your child needs the dummy for and when would be a good time to stop. Some of the disadvantages are things like a newborn baby sometimes can get a little bit confused with sucking between breast and between sucking a dummy. It doesn't happen with all babies, but it can be an issue. Another thing is there seems to be some research that says that dummies are linked to a higher risk of ear infections. But then we get to a stage where very many children start showing a time when they're not that interested in their dummy anymore, and it's often when there's a new developmental stage starting. So for example, when a child is ready to start crawling, they might be less interested in their dummy. If as a mom you notice that, it would be a good idea to throw it away at that particular stage, because what happens as the children get older is they become emotionally attached to their dummy, and so although it does calm them, it can become a problem in the long term. And with children that are sucking dummies over a year, over 2 years, specifically over 2 years, we start seeing dental problems, and that's when you're going to spend all your money on orthodontics in the later years. Some of the issues are with prolonged sucking of a dummy, you get a higher palate forming, and you can get misalignment of the teeth, especially as the secondary teeth start coming out. And there are many children that are sucking dummies until they're 4 or 5 years of age. Those parents are going to have substantial orthodontic problems. The problem also with the speech is that as their mouth displaces, their speech sounds, especially the S sounds, become a little bit difficult. One of the other issues is that the speech therapists tell us that it prolongs an immature suck, and we need to develop the muscles around our mouths and our tongues and so on. And when you're sucking, your tongue is forced to the top of your palate, and that's not quite the same sound, the same movement that you require for some of the speech sounds. So I think the speech therapists will tell us get rid of your dummy at about a year, no later than 2 years. The moms in all of us will say, well, fine, we need it for our sleeping, to get our children to sleep at night and so on. So yes, those are some of the disadvantages.
Okay. If my baby is now a year or 2 years old and I need to take this dummy away, how do I do it? Because I've heard rumors about cutting the tip, having a ceremony, putting it onto a dummy tree. What is the best way to approach this?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the best is to look for when the right time is, when your child is less interested and when they're becoming more interested in something else, like beginning to crawl, beginning to walk, going to school, when there's a change. But the one thing about a dummy is, don't take a dummy away when your child is having a difficult time. If there's been some family trauma, if the child's been ill, if the pet's died, if granny's gone away for a long time and they're used to something like that, then that's not a good time, because for many children it's an emotional thing as well. So I think that the best tip is not to leave it for too long, if at all possible, because then it becomes a real battle. I don't personally have any preference for any of the particular methods. I've done all of them myself with better or less success. All I can tell you is the longer you leave it, the harder it gets.
So Joan, decreasing the time that a child has with a dummy can also be one of the ways in which we take the dummy away. What do you suggest with regards to that?
I think it's very useful to decide when your child really needs a dummy. Usually it's going to bed, at sleep time, perhaps when they're upset, and then limit it to those times. Don't let your child walk around with a dummy pinned to their chest the whole time, because then it's far too convenient to pick up. So if you're going on an outing and if you don't anticipate visiting the doctor for injections or something that's going to be traumatic, I would leave the dummy at home and let them start developing an association that this is only given to me when I'm going to bed.
Yes. So a dummy can be associated with a specific time or a specific context. You can get your dummy when you're at home or at sleep time, but not when you're at school or at playtime. Okay, Joan, is there any relationship between dummies and preventing SIDS?
There is a lot of research that says dummies, in using dummies with young children seems to reduce the incidence of SIDS. The only criteria that goes with that is if your child goes to sleep sucking on a dummy. If he spits the dummy out, don't leave it in the cot, take it away, don't put it back in if he's already asleep. But that does seem to be an issue. Obviously, you don't want to complicate the SIDS issue by leaving a dummy chain around the child's throat or neck or pinning something onto his clothes, but the sucking seems to make a difference.
So you also don't want to make it too convenient for them to
Exactly.
get the dummy all the time. With regards to reflux, some research says that a dummy can actually be a help.
That's true. They seem to think that when a child is sucking on a dummy, it helps to keep the stomach contents down. And if you do have a child with reflux, it can be really a problematic thing. And anything that will help, I think, can be tried and see if it works for you.
Thanks, Joan.